Oh my God, this white American lady going crazy. She is absolutely offended by my video talking about Chinese working class living standard is much better than the American working class. And she asked me to check her TikTok page to see how nice her house is, how gorgeous the view is. Yes, lady, your house is beautiful, really good. But I said in my video, when you compare two countries' living standard, you need to compare all the people in the country, rich to rich, middle class to middle class, poor to poor. Okay, your personal life does not represent the whole American people. There's many poor people in the United States. There's many homeless people in the United States. They are all Americans. You want to compare two countries' living standard, you need to count everyone in.
Delighted to have you once more, amazing viewer at Comfort for Life. I'm back again with another compilation, and this video is a continuation of the previous video I made on the same. So I must mention this again, this isn't really about praising China. It's not about telling you a list of achievements that this country has been able to achieve. So this is something bigger. It's about us. When we see at others' life, when you see their struggles, their joy, their reality, it should really make us think. It should awaken us. It should push us to think bigger and think holistically about our own lives and the well-being of everyone around us. So briefly, this video is aiming at advocating for the overall wellness, the chance of a good life for all human beings on this planet. So nobody is deserving of the struggles they go through, especially when, if addressed, they can be fixed. Like the video for recommendation, subscribe if you're new here.
They are all Americans. You want to compare two countries' living standard, you need to count everyone in. You cannot just automatically ignore all the poor people in the United States and only compare your personal life to all the poor people in China. That doesn't fair, don't you think? Also, when you keep saying about child labor, Xinjiang genocide, or free Tibet, those are lies. Those are fabricated lies by anti-China propaganda. You know what is truth? Genocide, slavery, colonization, those are truth. Okay, lady, stop using propaganda as evidence. It doesn't work. It only makes yourself look crazy. You have a beautiful house. Enjoy your life. Why you get so offended by my video? Jesus.
Isn't everyone in rural China super poor?
I'm an American who moved to China. I think that living conditions in China are much better than they are in the United States. Now, I started coming to China in 2016. At that time, you might have been able to say that the United States was better than China. But I don't think that's true anymore. When I say things like this, many people challenge me and say that I just see the big cities, or I don't know what rural life is like in China. I don't live in the city. I live in rural China. Traveled to other rural areas in China. But I grew up in rural America, and nothing has changed there. Life in rural China has gotten much, much, much better. In fact, life everywhere in China has gotten better. But if you ask an American, they'll tell you that life in America has gotten worse. China has invested in infrastructure to benefit everybody over the years. The United States has not done this. We don't even have high-speed rail. Most cities do not have bus service or subways. Roads are not safe enough to ride scooters. You know, I'm sure they exist, but I've yet to see a pothole in China. Potholes in America will break your car, and they never get fixed. I just got tired of the crumbling infrastructure.
You want to talk about poverty in China? Let's talk about poverty in China, because I've seen poverty in China and I've seen how the government fights poverty and serves the poorest. That's me, by the way, helping a poverty relief team deep in the mountains of Southwest China in one of the most isolated villages ever. The government sent them there to live in that village for years, try to understand the local conditions, come up with solutions to fit the needs of each and every family, and oversee the implementation. When I went there the first time in 2019, the poverty rate was 95% in that specific village. And that story isn't unique. Since 1980, over 770 million people have shaken off extreme poverty in China. And really, there's no need to compare poverty in China to poverty in the US or any other country, because that's like comparing apples to oranges in terms of experience and national conditions. What China has done to help its population in terms of magnitude, of scale, of resources mobilized within that time frame has not been done by anyone else. And that's no exaggeration, because China was poor, famine level poor. You see this red line? That's the percentage of rural population in China living under the absolute poverty line. And we're speaking about the Chinese countryside because historically, that's where poverty had been concentrated. And that red line, you see it drop over the course of 40 years to the point where in 2020, it zeroes. And let me explain that. Since the end of 2020, there was 0 people in China living in extreme poverty. And here's what that means. The poverty line in China has been adjusted over the years to better reflect inflation levels. And in 2020, it was 4,000 yuan per year, or roughly $1.6, $1.7 per day. But here's the thing. China takes a multi-dimensional approach to classifying poverty, and per capita income is not the only factor. It goes beyond that. Impoverished families have to have access to basic public services to be counted out of poverty. The 3 main ones are compulsory education for free, 9 years from 6 years old to 15 years old, basic medical insurance, and safe housing provided by the government. Here is a before and after photos of the housing conditions in the village that I visited, 2019 versus 2020. There's also a bunch of other boxes to tick, like access to safe drinking water, access to electricity, paved roads, phone coverage. It is a comprehensive set of criteria that is meant to create the necessary conditions for impoverished people in impoverished areas to live a decent, dignified life, pull themselves up, and be productive. And the current goal right now for China is to prevent these people from falling back into poverty and to help them develop sustainably in the long run. And this is what China now is calling rural revitalization. Now, just because China eradicated extreme poverty doesn't mean that there aren't low-income groups in the country or vulnerable families, or that development is equal everywhere. Obviously, there's the urban-rural divide, but also the eastern part of China is historically more advanced than the western regions. But the China you see today is not the same as China from 10 years ago, is not the same as China from 20 years ago. And for hundreds of millions of people, life is dramatically better.
You're a foreigner. How could you live in the Chinese countryside?
China is hiding its villages from foreign tourists.
This is what so many people say online.
Should foreigners live in a small Chinese village? No. Well, at least not if it's your first time coming to China. I personally love living in a small Chinese village, but that's after I've been in China for about 8 years off and on. What I did, and my suggestion to others, is to live in a big city first, like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shanghai, or Beijing, Chengdu even, in order to have some familiarity, get your toes wet before jumping all the way into the pool. First of all, the language barrier. In big cities, you're bound to find people who speak English or who speak Putonghua, a very neutral version of Mandarin. Whereas in small villages, the population is usually a little bit older, they most likely don't speak much English, and they might even only speak their local dialect. So if you're still a beginner at Mandarin, trying to navigate a dialect is going to be really difficult. Secondly, the food. After 8 years in China, I basically eat Chinese food every single day. I love the fresh produce in a small village. I love that everything goes from the farm to my table in just a couple minutes. But if you're brand new to China, there's probably going to be times where you're just craving some Western food or some food from home. So if you're looking for international products, like the way I miss having tortillas to make tacos or burritos, you're not going to find that in a small village. Let me tell you the top 3 reasons why I love living in a Chinese little village. Number 1, everything's fresh. Fresh air, fresh vegetables, fruit, produce, meat, everything here's fresh. I used to live in Guangzhou and hated that the skies were always gray, but out here, there's always blue skies, just like my home in Canada. We eat depending on what vegetables are growing in our garden. We have a goose farm across the street, and when we want fresh goose, we just need to go right across the street and pick it up. The produce comes from farmers that are right in the area, so none of it has to travel too far to get to our table. Number 2, a sense of community. Here in our big house, we get to have lots of people join us for games, for activities, for fun, and all the kids love to have English class with me. That way, when other kids in the village see me teaching English, they don't feel scared, they join us for English class, and I'm able to give back to my community in a small way. I know that I might not be making anyone an English expert with an hour or so a week, but hopefully now that these kids who are from this small village have interacted with a foreigner, as they get older, they won't be scared to have a foreign teacher, to have foreign colleagues at work, and who knows, maybe go travel abroad one day or live and work abroad too. And reason number 3 is how we're able to prepare the food. Because I live in a village, we often cook outside with fresh fire. It feels so healthy and inviting to eat this way. I get to be a part of the process, like breaking down the wood, starting the fire, chopping up the vegetables that need to go into our food. So all of it just makes me feel really connected to what I'm eating, as opposed to in Canada where everything was really fast food, takeout. Here, everything is slow, everything is intentional, and everything makes me feel very, very warm inside.
What are the living conditions of people in rural China, especially those villages who get yearly dividends from renting out their land? Many people think they are very wealthy. Let me go and see it for myself today. Let's go.
Filming in someone's home isn't easy, so I will bring some gifts to bribe them a little. This one looks like easy to bribe. Let's go.
你好，你好。今天一下这个农村的生活，不好意思打扰您。好了，够了，谢谢。This family is a poor family in this village. You see the stove here. It's a firewood stove. Let me check what they are cooking now. Oh, they are just boiled water. So many firewood. I'm curious where they get it. 这一层是吧？a small bedroom. Okay. This size of TV. I'd rather say it's a computer display. They have 2 floors in total. 一共2层是吧？A balcony here. This room is another kitchen. It's by gas. House is small, but life is not simple. You can see those plants, how beautiful they are. Okay. 真的没人，偷偷拍一下。Okay, let's go. The owner is taking me to his vegetable fields because he has land to grow vegetables. 是这一片都是吗？这一片都是。And have many butterflies.
Because the village rents out land for factories and fish ponds, this family can get about $4,500 a year in dividends, even without working.
来拍一下。
谢谢。好，那你进来。
好，谢谢。Chinese style sofa. This area is their TV, much bigger than last family. And this is where they cook, or is an open kitchen. And this room is their whole world. 哎，这个牛奶是过期的吗？不，23年2月。我操，这放这是干嘛的？他们要给谁喝？
This family also gets $4,500 a year in dividends, but their income is much higher than just that. Okay, let's head to the neighboring village and see if we can find a family willing to let me film.
不好意思，要拍一下你们的。谢谢。This is their fish tank.
This village looks wealthier and even has its own elementary school. But since not much land is rented out, this family only gets $2,000 a year in dividends.
Look at that family. It's a wealthy family. Everyone give me likes, and next time I will buy more gifts to bribe them and film them inside.
I will also visit a village closer to the city center to check their dividends. It's estimated to be at least 10 times more than what they get here.
Do you want to know the difference between Chinese propaganda and US propaganda about China? US propaganda is basically about how bad is China and when should we attack China. China's propaganda about China is basically like, look at us, we're doing okay, come and visit if you want to check it out. That's the difference.
American capitalism is pure propaganda and semantics. And I'm not saying this to be controversial. I'm saying this because I'm 35 years old, and it wasn't until this year that I started to actually learn how things work. And as a realtor, I'm embarrassed to admit what I'm about to tell you. The homeowners in China actually have a more close relationship to ownership than Americans do. In China, you don't technically own land, you lease it. You lease it for 70-year periods. And in most cases, that 70-year land lease, it's comparable to what you would pay in a purchase price in a home in America. They finance that over the course of 70 years. They also don't have annual state taxes. This is important. They also don't pay for insurance, which is another really important piece. Under capitalism, you technically own the property, but first of all, if you have a mortgage note, you don't own shit. All right. And even if you pay cash or pay off your mortgage, you still pay annual taxes every year. In addition to that, you also pay insurance. Everyone with a mortgage is required to pay for insurance. And insurance, I'm not even going to get into how much bullshit homeowners insurance is, specifically in the state of Florida. And you might be wondering, if they're not paying for insurance in China, what happens if an earthquake hits or a tsunami, whatever? The government pays for it. Think FEMA, but actually pays out and gives a shit about people. But wait, there's more. Because in China, even though it's only a 70-year land lease, you might be thinking, well, 70 years, sure, that's your lifetime, but what about your kids? You can transfer it to your kids with no administrative fees. So technically that lease starts to look a whole lot more like ownership, doesn't it? Because after 70 years, they don't have to pay shit. Whereas your kids and grandkids here in America, even if you give them a property that's owned outright, if they fail to pay the taxes, it will be taken from them. We've been so propagandized that we don't look beneath the surface. We've been trusting the authority figures in our lives to tell us the truth. And the truth is that those people were lied to by people who had a massive financial incentive to make sure that you never knew the truth. If you guys are interested in a full deep dive on this, where I do a side-by-side comparison with American metros versus Chinese metros, the cost of ownership, and all that good stuff, let me know in the comments. It just takes a lot of effort to put those types of videos together. So if there's interest, I'm more than happy to cite my sources and provide these numbers for you guys, because we need to know this stuff. The more educated we are, the more information we have to move forward in building a system that actually works for us.
As an Aussie who's been to China 4 times, let me debunk some of the most common misconceptions about China. First one, China is behind. This is just ridiculous. People think that China is a poor and old country, which is quite strange because there's cashless payment everywhere, high-speed trains, delivery is super fast, everything is so efficient and so modern. I've seen tech there that we probably won't see in Australia for another 5 or so years. It's just really another world, like going to the future. There's little robots in restaurants as your waiter, in your hotel, your delivery. Everything is just insane. I can't even describe it. It's just another universe, nothing like what I see in Australia. Another one is that China is all factories and pollution. Yes, there are factories, but there's also a lot of nature and beautiful scenery. The thing that surprised me the most as soon as I arrived, actually in Hong Kong, was how much nature there was. There's mountains, lakes, so much greenery everywhere, and all the cities I've been across China, they're different from city to city, but the consistent thing is that there's a lot of nature. You can't look anywhere without seeing nature in China. Next is that Chinese people are rude. Not true. The people there are warm, safe, friendly, and when I was there, people went out of their way to help me. Had a language barrier, people would try their best, use translators. People are not rude at all. Even in stores, oftentimes the service workers will give you extra for free or give you samples for free. They're so friendly, so generous, and I haven't encountered anyone particularly rude in China. The last and most ridiculous one of all is that everybody is the same. China is such a huge country, and even just driving a few hours to another city is like entering a new country. The food is different, breakfast, lunch, almost every aspect of the cuisine is different from city to city. The people might sound different, dialects, different language. Someone from Shanghai is not the same as someone from Xinjiang, Beijing, Yunnan. Everybody is different, and it's very clear once you go to China how different everybody is and how much culture there is packed into one country.
Earlier, I said Americans are the most propagandized people in the world, and I want to clarify that. I didn't mean to shame regular folks. Most people around the world don't really get Western mainstream media anyway. These are big global outlets, found in China, Africa, the Middle East, etc. North Korea is usually the only major country with little of their presence. A key point. About 6 billionaire families control most of this media. With money, they buy or influence local media in other countries to push their values, claiming capitalism plus liberal democracy is the only good system, while painting communism and socialism as harmful and promoting Western countries such like America as the best country in the world. Why? Because billionaires there can use money to lobby leaders, even presidents, and shape policies, and buy key resources in other countries to control them. In communist and socialist systems, money-driven lobbying for political gain is corruption and illegal, for example, China. Also, these media don't just influence Westerners. Many people worldwide, even some in China, are unconsciously shaped by their stories. That's because these media are everywhere and have more resources to make and spread content. With such far-reaching global influence, it's easy for these Western mainstream media to twist the truth or deliberately smear other countries when they want to. China, for example, is often targeted by their smears.